I'm happy to be here in the city of Toronto when it's actually not snowing. And I've been told that this time is short. Enjoy it and come back next year at the same time. I'm going to share with you my journey as a way of really telling you that anybody, any place, any time can achieve what I've achieved and more, obviously. And but the basic reason why I'm going through that is to conclude by showing you, talking to you about some of the things that I've learned as the lessons really learned from here that might be transferable. How many of you know where this place is? You know where it is? This is, yeah, one person, and it's interesting that my own niece sitting over there, she doesn't recognize it. This is a little village in Iran called Bishe, which has now become a sensation for tourists in Iran. But when I was born there, just about 200 meters from this waterfall, it was nothing but just a little railroad station where my dad worked. And our family, you know, kind of started from there. So that's my beginning. Very small little village place around the Iranian railroad. But I grew up in a city in Andimeshk, where I went to school. I'm actually Andimeshk and Desful in Khuzestan. And I came to America in 1978 to finish high school in Boston. And I left Iran September 4th. September 7th, the revolution started. So I think the king decided, since Faraj has left the city, I might as well go. Neither one of us went back for good. So when the revolution happened, for a lot of people like me, and this is not just me, almost everybody was in this situation, the money got cut off. So we all had to work as kids. And Iranian kids, 17-year-old, you've never worked a day in your life. You don't even clean after yourself in an Iranian family. So it was a change for all of us to learn to be independent and to learn to actually work for a living, right? So right across from where my college was at the time, there was this Turkish guy who had a pizza place, and he gave me a job. The job was 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. Then Boston, just kind of like Toronto, in the wintertime, it's not a good place to be biking from your work to your school, to your room. But, you know, we made ends meet. We put ourselves through school. And at the time, you know, when working in these places and friends were working in gas stations, you know, we thought there's got to be a better way. We, you know, we go to class and we're half sleeping, falling asleep during the lecture. You know, what if we just negotiated with the guy that one of my friends would work in the gas station? It was this drunk Greek guy. Most days he was just drunk at the bar next door. So we went and talked to him and said, you know, can we lease your gas station? Because our thinking was, well, we rent the gas station, we put people to work, and then you know, we go to our classes more, right? We become business owners. And so he agreed because he preferred to spend even more time at the bar. And so we got the gas station, and we're out one night coming back. This is like within 2 months after we rented the gas station. And we see the police there. Everybody was there, the ambulances, the police. And we got out there. One of the classmates that we'd put to work had gotten into an argument with the guy. And the guy shot him. But the bullet missed him. And they were taking him to the ambulance. So we looked at each other and said, no, this is not. This is exactly what the advice somebody had given my dad before he agreed to send me to US is they'll kill you for $1. I'm like, they were right. Right? I shouldn't have talked my dad out of that. So after that, we decided, okay, well, that's not going to work. But, you know, we got this lease on this gas station. We give the gas station back to him. But, and this came from my experience that I went to rent a car. And they said, you can't rent a car. You need a Visa card. I said, well, I don't have a Visa card. I'm a student. They said, well, you got to pay $500 down payment. And I said, well, I don't have $500. I'm a student. So there went that vacation. And I'm thinking, you know, what do all the kids do that don't have credit cards when they come to these countries? And so we decided to actually take the rest of the money that we'd gotten back from the drunken owner and go buy used cars, created a car company called Easy Rental, and it was exactly that easy. You just come in, you rent a car, you go, you don't need a credit card. And within about two and a half months, we started to lose cars one at a time. You know, there'd be one left in New Hampshire and one left in Maine, and you know, God knows for what reason, and the cars were dwindling. So anyways, we lost all the money, and this was the extent of our market research, right? So, went back to making pizza. Thinking that, you know, all this money is gone, now we got to pay back for it, and you know, making pizza is really the sure way thing to pay the bills. But as a result of that, I developed this distaste for pizza. So don't offer me pizza while I'm here. Anyways, the university finished. I went and worked at a company called Maycom, and then Bell Labs, graduate school. My Bell Lab professor recruited me to Bell Labs, and I went to work there for about 9.5 years, 10 years at Bell Labs. And at some point in Bell Labs, I decided, you know, this designing thing, you know, it's kind of running its course. I really care more about higher level things, running the business, but Bell Labs was no place for business, it was a place for innovation. And I convinced my department head to agree that I would go to business school instead of getting a PhD. And that was a tough argument to make at Bell Labs for those of you who know about Bell Labs. But anyways, I went to business school and started learning, you know, the trade of business. And, but, you know, as I started, you know, working in companies now that I had my MBA, this itch of starting those two little businesses kind of never left. And the itch of doing your own startups, being in charge of your own life, really never leaves. In this process, there was some other attempt at doing something else, which kind of, that's when I met Cameron. And I get this call from Cameron that, hey, you know, a couple of the guys that work for me are starting a company. I think you guys will be good fit. Why don't you guys talk? So I talked to them, and we ended up, you know, making contact in March, moving to California in April to start a company called Centillium Communications, which was the 17th company at the time to work on DSL technology, which was the next to voiceband modems. And so it was a tough thing to think about coming in that late and wanting to change things. But we had the benefit of really a solid team. And from that day forward, I designated Cameron as the master matchmaker, because not only he matched me with these guys, but later on he also matched me with my wife. So if you got a son who is not married and looking for, you go to him. He will create the perfect match. And for us, it was truly a perfect match, because not only it brought us success, but it brought us fantastic friendships that have lasted all these years. So Centillium Communication was a semiconductor company. Now, I was a systems guy, coming from Bell Labs and so on. But the other guys were all semiconductor guys that had worked with Cameron. And it was a good match, because on one side, I really represented the customer point of view, knowing what was needed to be able to deploy in large scale, and they thought they knew how to build this thing, which when I told them this is what I think we should build, I thought they're crazy when they agreed to build it. Because I thought, I didn't know them well enough then. I thought, these guys are either crazy or they just don't know anything. But they weren't crazy, and they knew all they needed to know to make really the best chips in the market at that time. So we took the company from opening the doors to taking it public in 3 years, which I think is still a record for a semiconductor company, because unlike our software brethren, the hardware guys, we got to make shit that works. And then we got to convince somebody to use it, and then they got to convince other people to buy it from them. So it's sort of like a convoluted process. After we took the company public, I ran the company for another 8 years, and we sold the company, broke it up into pieces, sold it, and I thought it was time to retire. I told my wife, we're going to retire. Little did I know then now that I should have never made that promise to her, because she herself will never retire. This was just a stupid comment on my part, which she won't let me live it down. But 3 months later, I was out of retirement again and doing another company. And this company was a company called the Quantia Corporation, which we were building data center connectivity that could speed 10 times faster. And then we brought that into enterprise. And then we brought the same concept into self-driving cars. We built the first chip in the world that will allow a self-driving car to have the bandwidth connectivity needed under the hood to make it all work. And just before COVID, Marvell came calling, and we sold the company to them after we'd taken it public, this time on New York Stock Exchange. It was a public company for 2 years, and then we sold it. And we decided after that to join with my co-founder and my wife to start a venture fund called Can Do Ventures. And this time, our focus really has been on passing on our experience while investing in seed stage companies. And we are very much hands-on because we're entrepreneurs. And we want to help these companies succeed. They benefit, we benefit, and hopefully we bring a little bit of a experience to play for them. And so that's Can Do Ventures. So then the question is, okay, 45 years of work, 2 successful IPOs, several M&As, analyzing thousands of these business cases, whether you're in the company or you're an investor. What have you learned? And that's sort of like what I want to share with you. And this was just to kind of set it up in such a way. First of all, success has been said by Dustin Moskowitz. This is the co-founder of Meta, what's now Meta, is the hard work plus good luck. It's the intersection of those two. And I 100% believe that. I don't think hard work alone, if you're an unlucky person, you're born unlucky, I'm sorry, ain't gonna work. If you're a lucky bastard like me, it works. All you gotta do is show up. So, but what is it that we can do as entrepreneurs if this is the formula for success? The only thing an entrepreneur can do is to increase those intersections. Put yourself in positions when the luck comes and the lady luck knocks the door, that you're there to open it. And that just doesn't mean, just willy-nilly go up to the bar every day and say, oh, I wish I was getting lucky today. It's you put in the time, you put in the work, you put in the discipline, and all the learnings about what it is to build a really good business, and the luck will come. So, then what are my 3 takeaways, from just life perspective? First of all, I learned through this process, particularly starting with business school. When I went in, I was an engineer, math major in high school, engineer through and through, and then you go to Bell Labs, and Bell Labs drills it into your head that you're nothing but science, nothing but logic. And if black or if white, they would actually take us make us take sentences out of our papers that were not anything factual, right? So you go with that mindset, business school, it teaches you that there are shades of gray and there's lots of different ways to look at things, right? And you got to retrain yourself as an engineer to actually start thinking that way, right? So part of this is learning to listen and don't always say but say and. If somebody is pitching you an idea or somebody is telling you about something you're learning, don't lead with the word but, because but stops progress and adds to it. And I learned this through this journey. Paying forward. It's your job and your responsibility to always pay forward, whether it's in your community, whether it's at your work, or whether it's at the position you are after you built your own life. You need to pay forward. That's what makes the world go round. And then all through it, mind your family. Because business, entrepreneurship takes all of your energy. It takes every bit that you have to be successful. It's not about when I rented that gas station, oh, I can go to clubs at night, go to school in the morning, but then have somebody pour money down my throat. That's not how it works. Successful businesses at this level require total dedication, but that total dedication, you need to set time aside to also live and take care of your family. So those are my life lessons that I've learned. And I'll tell you about something else, about business. And then I'll end with what I believe is the proper way of pitching your business or thinking about starting a business. So during Centillium days, I had dinner with this guy in Taiwan. He was the chairman of a company called Aalaei. And it was a very successful computer company, I think still quite large. And we were having these conversations. He had a co-founder that he had built 5 companies before with him, and this was their first big hit. And through dinner, I said, Robert, what's the word with ASCII? ASCII computer communication. He said, look, when I was building these businesses with David, every single one of them failed. We were college buddies, and we were determined to build a business together. And he said, before we started this business, we were sitting in a cottage and we were drinking beer. We were saying, why did all of these companies fail? Why are we so unlucky? And he said, after drinking a few more beer, we landed on the notion that the mistake we made in all of these companies is that we never asked a key question about the business. So we decided to name the company ASCII. So it's always every day a reminder to us to ask key questions. Whether you're starting your own company or whether you're running a project or you're running a business, your job as a leader is to keep asking key questions. Okay, not gotcha questions, key questions. So that principle stuck in my head. Complementary team. I see a lot of business cases where the person comes in, alone basically, or they comes in with their cousins or comes in with their buddies from college, and you look at 2 or 3 of them and their copies are the same or irrelevant to what they're trying to get done. A complementary team doesn't mean somebody that you just kind of love to hang around with. A complementary team means you got to look at the business you're creating, and you need to figure out who in this team is there for what purpose and is not really a duplication. 5 engineers, as brilliant as they might be, coming together aren't necessarily going to make a successful business, right? And so they need to be thinking about what does this business need and have that from day one. You'd be surprised how many times I get entrepreneurs say, well, no, you need a business guy in here. No, we'll just build the product and then we'll bring the business guy, because bringing the business guy now is too expensive or something. Complementary team, if you can help it from the beginning. If you can't, it's got to be one of your top 1 or 2 items that you're going to do while you're building whatever you're building. And then the other thing is, as your organization grows, I think it's very important for you to lead with your heart, not with your head all the time, because you're building a community around you, right? So it's really important to, as a leader, not to just, do the 2 + 2 = 4 and then come with the conclusion and it's just black or white and so on. So I think it's very important to lead with your heart. All right, so with those learnings, I'm just going to kind of flip on to basically my last slide. Because this comes up all the time. Whether I'm doing a entrepreneurial training or whether I'm coaching one of our CEOs or the team members, it's, how do you write an effective business plan? How do you convince the judges sitting here that you got a shot at it, right? Because, well, everybody knows in startup world that nothing is guaranteed. But the thing has got to make sense. And so what are the 5 things you got to talk about and get off the stage? Okay? One is the precise definition of the need you're filling. Not broad brush strokes of, these fancy stuff that people keep throwing around. You need to understand the need. And let me tell you, more than important for the VCs, it's important for you because you're the only one who's going to spend 5 to 7 years of your life going down a rat hole which may not have a light, right? So it's really critical for you to know what that need is, define it very precisely so you know exactly what you're targeting. A wishy-washy kind of need definition, leads to a wishy-washy business plan, and it kind of falls off, right? It's a very competitive world. You're not going to go far if you start with things that don't have the fundamental basis. And talk about how that need is being met today. So oftentimes, when you identify the need so clearly, there are ways where that need is being met today, and it could be highly inefficient. It could be a combination of 6 different things that have to happen for that need to be met, but it's being met, right? Oftentimes, it's not if there is a zero market out there, there is a need nobody knows about it, nobody has a solution, that means you have no market today. Now, you could go build a market, you could be Steve Jobs and build the iPhone, but I don't wake up every morning thinking that I'm Steve Jobs, right? So understand the need, understand how it's being met, because understanding how it's being met allows you to build a business plan that can be successful to go around the current solutions. Then you need to convince your VCs in your business plan that your mousetrap is different than others, and it needs to be defendable. It can't be just, okay, I identified this need, I write a piece of software. Well, if 10 other guys can read that piece of software, then you don't have much. So what's your hook? What's your actually differentiation at the end of the day? What do you make possible that current solutions can't, and it hasn't enough barrier, right? So the next thing, which is, by the way, for a lot of this, with all due respect to my engineer colleagues, for all of this, you need people who have great business sense in your team. Because every one of those questions, you need a business guy that tells you, nah, you're full of it, right? This is how it gets done. And then you exchange that opinion and you come up with something that makes sense. So how big is the market is another very critical area, right? A lot of people talk about TAM. Oh, there's a $6 trillion TAM to sell airplanes to military. Well, so what? What are you selling? The military isn't going to come buy the airplane next fighter jet from you tomorrow. What are you selling in that market that you think you can actually kind of create a business around? So this concept of SOM is really important. That means reducing that TAM to a SAM and then figuring out which piece of it you can sell, given your own differentiations, the need in the market, as well as, things you can't control, like outside control stuff, right? So you're not going to sell a lot of the chips that the Chinese have to their airplane jet, just like the Americans are now not buying from Chinese. So for a Chinese company to have that chip makes no difference. It's called an external environment effect on your business. And then at the end of the day, when you have all of those facts, show your investors, convince yourself and your team that in that you can make a buck, okay? Startups are not charity organization. At some point in time, you need to show that you can make money, right? Which means you need to have control of your cost drivers. You really need to understand what the ability of the customer to pay is, and they're just not going to pay whatever you ask, and that's a hard thing to digest at the beginning, because you came up with this wonderful thing that everybody's going to pay everything they have to buy it. It's in reality, when you get going, it's not. Oftentimes, it's not the case. So, what I look for in a good business plan is somebody showing up, 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 slides. Don't go too long. 15, 20 minutes, hit those 5 items for me. Just take away all the other stuff, right? And I have that comment on the bottom there, stick to the trunk of the tree. What I oftentimes see entrepreneurs or people that come into your office as a CEO and they're proposing a project, they're going through their reasoning. And you think you're following them, right? It's like going up the trunk of a tree. And then they take a branch here to tell you about this little fancy feature that, you hardly understand even as an audience. And then they go on to the smaller branch and then to the leaf. And by the time they're done, they've fallen off and you're lost. You lost what they're trying to sell you, what they're trying to convince you of. So I always say, stay on the trunk of the tree. What are you here to talk about? Hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, get off the stage. If you've intrigued them, trust me, they will spend a lot of time with you, probably a month or 2 months trying to figure out your business and figure out how they can help you or how they can be a part of it, right? Because in the world of investment, there are 2 things, right? And customers act on 2 things, fear or greed, okay? And when you're going out there to the venture community, you're by and large trying to convince them that they ought to be greedy with respect to participating in this thing with you, right? So keep it simple, 5 points, get off the stage. And at this point, I'm ready to get off the stage as well, so thank you. Oh, thank you.
It's really remarkable all the ways that we take in information and individually figure out, like from what Faraj just said, what are some of the attributes that I'm going to take back myself and how am I going to learn from those to be able to go back and give it another shot. So thank you so much for that inspiring presentation.